Everybody, welcome back to the podcast. This is your host, Khadijah D. And, this is Hear Our Voices, where we tell stories, give resources, and change the narrative of homelessness. I have a guest today. Her name is Kayla. But before we get into who that is and what she does for, I would say America, I feel like it affects a lot of people. People in their minds, especially New Yorkers, think that New York is basically America or just by itself, which is not true. But, fellow New Yorker here, I love it here. We have a lot of things going on, but it's amazing being here. But I just want to get into other stuff. Please follow us on social media. Everything will be down below in Linktree. We are working on Instagram. I know you see the nice graphics and stuff. I don't do that, but I will answer your questions in DM. But I don't need to make nice graphics. But another fellow named Vanjie, she does that. So shout out to her. And follow us on TikTok and follow us on YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you're listening to this right now, please like and subscribe and share, because we're trying to build a community. We want to make sure also that the resources go out to people. We also want to make sure anything we talk about policy-wise, that the masses can know about it and really make change for the people and the communities. A lot of the stuff right now we only do for New York City, I'm sorry, or New York State in general. But when we get bigger and better, we can do more things in more places. So if you help us get bigger and better, we can get the things that we need to be able to cover more widely in America. So yeah. And please, if you have any stories that you want to come on for the podcast, definitely, please come out to me. I'm usually on honestly, the internet more than I probably should be. 1, 2, or 3 in the morning, I am usually up. As for a mom, but probably not the greatest thing to be doing. But the point is that it's still happening. So I can answer any question you might have. And if I don't have the answer for something, I would definitely get to a person who's in that field who can help you. So if you have any education questions, I have Jennifer who could help. She's been on the podcast before. If you listen to the old podcast, there's other things I can help you with. If you need transfer, she could also help with that kind of thing. If you need to know how PAC is and you're feeling nervous and you don't know what to do, I could definitely help you with that, because I'm a person who went through that system, so I know how it works. Granted, things change, but even though some things have changed, some things more than it should has stayed the same. So I can help through that process. I can handhold a little bit if you want me to even follow you to path. I will if I off on that day. If you feel like you can't do it by yourself, I am trying to be as much for the people as I can be. Granted, I'm a mother, so just be also aware of that. I can't be there 24 hours a day, but I can be there at least 12 hours a day to help you. So I'm going to introduce my guest. She does a lot for our community, and I want her to tell you a little bit what she does for us.
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Khadijah. I'm super excited. I'm Kayla, and I am the Legislative Affairs and Community Engagement Specialist for the Alliance for Quality Education. At the Alliance for Quality Education, it is a statewide advocacy organization. We do a ton of work in New York City around K through 12 school funding, public school funding, and really just tackling the racial and economic oppression that happens in our public school system. Also, universal childcare as well. I am personally based in Albany. My main role at the Alliance for Quality Education, I help coordinate and facilitate 2 of our programs. One is Early Ed Warriors, one is Ed Warriors. They're both parent leadership development programs. It really trains and helps community leaders, parents, providers, how to become better advocates, political advocates, and really change legislation in their communities and their states. We don't typically do things federally, like nationwide, but the skills learned are all transferable. They're all relevant to really all levels of government,
right?
As long as those governments, the processes are the same, but I really help train the parents up in that. I will also be helping foster relationships with elected officials and the Alliance for Quality Education.
So can you tell us what skills a person should know to be able to be a good advocate and how to speak up for themselves?
What skills? I would say, first and foremost, I feel like confidence and belief in yourself. And that sounds like really cliche, but it's really the truth, because you don't need a college degree to advocate for yourself. We always say at the Alliance for Quality Education that if you've lived it, you are an expert. So you don't need a degree to tell you that something in your life is wrong and that you need to change it. So you really just need to have the confidence to speak to your elected officials, regarding that, and not feel intimidated. A lot of people feel intimidated, and remaining hopeful, because especially in these times, so many people are like, there's nothing I can do. There's, my voice doesn't matter. And that is literally farther from the truth. It's really about just finding those groups and creating those groups. And it's like a snowball effect. You get one person tells another person, and now you have a movement.
Right.
I'm sure folks that were being organized during the civil rights movement also felt like there was nothing that they could do, or the abolitionist movement, or all of these other social movements that have happened. No one would have thought we'd be where we are today, even though people are like, we're going backwards, but like we are much different than we were back then.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Sure.
And that's because people were confident, and people were hopeful, and used their experience to fight.
I'm happy that you said, I've said it a lot of times, like, especially like an example for hiring for certain positions. People say you need all these like degrees and things like that, but people go to social work school all they want to, but you haven't actually lived on the street or lived in a shelter. Have no idea how it really is to be in a shelter or experience a drug problem or experience certain things, sexual assault. It could be many different things. And I'm not saying that person can't help you to get certain things and get in certain parts in your life together. But the truth of the matter is, the person who actually went through that, they understand what part of your soul actually got touched by that event. And certain things like sexual assault and homelessness, you would think like, oh, you're just homeless and you get an apartment now and you're over. No, sometimes the trauma lives on with you forever. Like, for example, myself, I don't want to live in the project. I hate the project. I grew up in a house in Queens. But because I do live in NYCHA, as you guys know, at this point, you could probably look me up and Google me and find out where I live at this point. It's kind of scary if you think about it. You could probably do that to anybody at this point. Everything's on the internet. But I want to leave there, but I don't. It's almost like a comfort place. It's like if God forbid, I lose my jobs, that's I do so much jobs too, that if I don't have any money, my rent is going to be zero. I can go back and PA if I wanted to, which I would never want to do that because the money they give you is almost garbage. It's a bad safety net. And it's a good safety net and a bad one. It's like people stay there too long, but it's supposed to really be a stepping stone to get something better. But because I'm like, I don't want to be homeless again. I don't want to put my daughter through that trauma. When she's younger, she's a baby, so she really didn't understand. To her, the shelter was her home. But being now that she's 9, she would know the difference and know how it feels not to have a place after being in an apartment for so long of her own. So I would not want to, jeopardize that. So it's like, you get a lot of trauma. You're like, you have your place now, you're good. But it's always thinking, can it happen again? And honestly, it can happen to anybody. It could be a natural disaster. You see what happened to California. It can happen in a hurricane. We saw Katrina, we saw Sandy. And until you actually live in that position and feel that part of your soul almost basically die from the system and all these things, you really don't understand. And people don't understand that. So it's like, we don't have to, you can read it in a book all day and you can have sympathy for a person, but until you actually live through that process, it's not the same. It really isn't. So I'm happy that you said that. And I hope people will really get and understand that in general.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I always say hope in these times, hope in your personal lives is huge. And also remembering that that's what the system is designed to do, is to keep Black and brown people in this box with no hope to get out of it. Myself, I mean, growing up my mother was very unstable. I bounced from place to place, stayed with multiple people. I also lived in the projects really up until recently, 2022 is when I finally moved out.
Congratulations.
And thank you. But since I moved out, I have moved 4 or 5 times.
Oh my God, that's scary just to hear that.
I've moved 4 or 5 times. And right now I'm living with family, with my kids and my husband.
Right.
But the difference is that I have tasted what it felt like to get out of the system, so to say, and understanding that is not all that there is. Right. And a lot of people, they do suffer from PTSD. I mean, myself included, like the trauma of, you're right, like, if you lose your job, housing is not going to kick you out.
Right.
They're going to lower your rent to zero. Some places is $50.
Right.
You could find $50 in a month. Maybe, right. You could do something. You got food stamps, you got all of these safety nets.
Right.
And they keep you there. I remember actually when I was going to college, I lived in housing. I didn't work, and I used my financial aid to help like me survive,
Right.
because they don't count financial aid as income.
Right.
So because you have to pay it back.
Right.
So I would take my financial aid.
Yours you have to pay back. I had to pay mine back grants.
Well, I took out financial aid loans. So I had grants and I
did that when I was in my 4-year school. My
Yes.
4-year school, that was just free. Thank God.
No, yeah. Well, the thing is it could have been free.
Yeah.
And I could have just taken grants, but I needed to survive because I had 3 kids, my husband. So I was like, I'm going to also take out loans.
Got it.
So now I'm in way more debt than I could have been.
Right.
But I needed to do that to be able to survive and not work.
Right.
So I remember like looking for childcare, and that was really what like confirmed that where I'm going and what I'm going to school for is what I should be going to school for. Because I remember I was furious. I went down to the DSS building and asked them for help with childcare while I was going to school. And they were like, you actually, and thankfully legislation has been passed thanks to parents who fought and, organizations. And, but at that time, it didn't. Yeah. At the time, it wasn't the case. And my DSS worker said, well, you don't work, so you don't qualify for childcare. And I was like,
you go to school,
but I'm going to school full time. And she was like, yeah, you still have to have 25 hours of work hours. So I said, so you would rather that I quit school,
right?
So that way I don't have a chance to get out of the system,
right?
And work 25 hours at a dead end job, making minimum wage that shouldn't even be the minimum wage.
Exactly.
And get your childcare and then just never go to school. And she just looked at me, and I remember I stormed out and I walked out and I made it happen for the grace of God. I don't know how I leaned on everybody and anybody to take my kids while I went to school. And I mean, I finished, but it's really that hope. It's like there is something that can change, and not allowing these institutions and these systems to tell you that this is all that you can do. Because if you don't, like, when were we afraid of climbing the ladder? Like, why are we afraid of getting out? Because we have this scarcity mindset of like, I'm safe with housing. I'm safe with food stamps, with my like I'm safe. I mean, Medicaid, don't even get me started with health insurance. I'm like to the point where maybe I should quit my job and like go back to Medicaid, because it's like, it is scary. It is really scary. But like, that is just a testament of this country, like the way that the system is set up. Like, why is it set up that way? That as a Black mom of 3,
right,
that I am afraid to get my college degree and to move out of housing and buy a house, or afraid or don't think that I can. Right. When I guarantee you, if you looked at your counterparts, they wouldn't have those same fears. It would be, they're afraid of being in housing.
Right.
They're afraid of not having, like, where did that, and I guess that's why I do what I do, because I want to break down those barriers and show people that that's not something that you should be afraid of, and you should have hope. And the system is designed to make you feel like there's nothing that you can do. Specifically for Black and brown folks, it's not designed like that for white people.
Right.
Just plain and simply, it's not designed like that. And there is something, like, we can change legislation, and we can change the circumstances.
Right. It's a lot, because honestly, ever since I was young, I've been helping with this homeless issue, or just to help with certain things and raising money. So I was like in elementary school back in the day, used to like bring home, like, get the pennies, or they had march of dimes. I think that's what's called for the babies. I was always doing something like that. But honestly, I feel like living where I live, I never really got it. I never saw homeless, like where I lived was near Long Island. So all we have is houses. If I saw a building, it was like near Jamaica Avenue, which is more a different country, like, I guess, economic life. Even though technically I was poor, but I didn't know I was poor. My grandmother called me, which my landlady called me, the poor rich little girl, because I didn't know I was poor, but I act like I was a rich person. Like, in my mind.
Well, shout out to your parents, because I knew I was poor.
much. And I only had
Yeah.
one. I had one mom. And I saw her always
Yeah.
working and working hard.
Yeah.
And I never knew I was poor. I told my mother she worked as a lunch lady,
Mm.
and she always had 2 jobs.
Mhm.
Well, I can't do that now because she's out of the place, but y'all good. And just never knew I was like. I didn't get name brand, but I think what it is, I wasn't a kid who really cared enough for it. Like when I got
Right.
older, I cared a bit more. My mother's Jamaican, so she always had us in uniforms. My brother not so
Okay.
much, but me in uniform. So to me, I saw other kids not that much, but a few of us was in uniform. So to me, it's like I'm in uniform. I don't really
We all
need
wear
all
the
this other
same
stuff. It's
clothes,
not
yeah.
like exactly. So I never, I cried every day to wear regular clothes to be like a normal child. But she did in her mind, because that's how her country still is. She made me do it. And I never knew I was poor. And I asked my brother literally, I think it was last month. I was like, when did you know he was poor? And mind you, he grew up with his dad in the house.
Mhm.
He came when I was 15. I'm 7 years older than my brother, so he had him for a good part of his life. Um, and he could see that he was poor. I never saw it because I lived in the
Is he older
house.
than you?
No, I'm 7 years older than him.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I just never, I think honestly have rose colored glasses. Like
Mhm.
I was sickly with my eyes growing up and I had those problems, but I just never seen that. And then people around me also thought I had money. So it was
Right.
like, I don't know how. Maybe it is. I just when you think big, you act big. So
Hey.
And I didn't realize it. And I think I knew I was poor in my 20s. I didn't know I was poor until my 20s.
Mm.
And mind you, I've been working since I was 14. And I think also my mindset of poorness is also probably different than a
Right.
lot of people.
Right.
And I never saw the construct of this and things in general was just so different for me. I did not see a lot of things because my mother didn't teach me that way. I just never seen it as a lot of people. So a lot of things like people can be discriminating because of they're black to get housing. I never knew that was a problem until
Mhm.
honestly my 30s. I just never seen it.
Right.
I lived in a house for 25 years. I just never seen things. And I'm learning things now as an adult, well, as an older adult, that other people have not seen. I don't know if that's sad or not, but rose colored glasses can really make you a bit different compared to everybody else. And it's
Yeah.
weird.
I mean, it's like, it's easy. Like you said earlier, like New Yorkers think that they're the only ones on the planet.
Yes.
But I don't think that's only true for New Yorkers. I think that's just people in general, and especially Americans. Like we live in these vacuums
Yes.
of like, this is my little bubble and this is how the world is everywhere. And I don't see, and that's why education is so important. Like,
Right.
and I don't mean the education
Like in
that
a
you get
book.
from like in a book, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, just life education and learning about other people and different cultures and all of these different issues, because like for one, it'll help you realize that you're not alone.
Right.
And for two, it helps you realize that like there's similar stories. Sometimes you got it worse than someone else. Sometimes you got it actually better than you think you do. And it's just education and awareness is huge. I mean, even with the program that we run at AQE,
Right.
I just had a conversation yesterday with one of our participants, and they were saying, like, the person is a childcare provider, an after school program provider, and they were saying, I joined this program. I knew it was a problem, but like until now, I didn't realize how like this is actually affecting my friends and my family. Like I
Right.
thought I was in this bubble and I
Yes.
was just doing this thing. And now that I'm being more immersed in it and learning like what the issues actually are, it's crazy. And I think that's part of the reason why so many people, like you say, when you ask like what skills you need, it's like so many people also don't have hope when it comes to tackling legislation and tackling their elected officials and fighting for different causes, because they don't even realize what the extent of the issues.
Right.
Like they have they people that have their experiences just think that that's just what it is. Like
Right.
it is what it is. This is how it is. This is how it's always been. And there's no need to change it because I'm alive, I'm surviving. But it's like, no, when you really look at it, like you're barely surviving.
Barely.
You're barely surviving. And you don't even realize it. You think that this is normal.
That's the thing.
And it's not.
The now makes you think a lot of things are normal.
For sure.
I'm not gonna lie. Like I think what I was going back to before, because I lived where I lived, I just never realized it. And I think even though I hated being homeless, especially with my child, because for me, bringing a child in the world and you made them come in the world you're not stable in, it doesn't make you feel good as a parent. Like I feel like I failed her coming out the womb. Like she came out and she was homeless.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy to feel that way about their child. And I think God made me, if you don't know, I'm very Christian. If you go to my regular social media, that's just what I am. And everything happens for a reason. I really believe that. At the time, I didn't understand the purpose of why I was going through that. But growing up where I did and with the rose-colored glasses in Queens, just chilling, not realizing I knew homelessness was happening, but I didn't know how bad it is. I feel like going to Brooklyn and Manhattan, I don't go to the Bronx that much to tell you what's happening in the Bronx, but you see them all in the streets. And I think it's almost more buildings, so there's more people, so they out there and you can see them. And I didn't know a lot of families were homeless. And usually in New York City, we have so much resources for families. They're the unseen homeless. Like the homeless man you see on the street, we expect that, but they put the families in the building, so they actually pushed away. Society don't even know families. A lot of families are homeless in New York City. So I had to go through that experience to be able to do what I'm doing now. Because I couldn't, any opportunities I had now, I wouldn't even qualify for if I wasn't homeless. So I thank God for that happening, even though at the time I did not like it, the depression and everything happening, but everything definitely happens for a reason. Now we here full circle and I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm able to be the voice for the voiceless. And I'm happy that you say hope. Like when you're in a position, honestly, you feel hopeless. And it's like, until you kind of get out of it, or sometimes when you're in it, some people, I feel like when I was homeless, I didn't have that much strength, to be honest. I had enough, but it was barely making it. And then now I'm out of it. I'm like, man, I feel more hopeful. When something doesn't pass in legislation, though, that makes me my hope level can kind of go down. I have to kind of feed it back up to where it needs to be. But we have to have hope, guys. There's a lot of things happening right now and a lot of things we want to get past and get done. And it feels a little bit hopeless, but we have to band together as a people and be the voice for the voiceless, like I say, and to make sure that things can be pushed ahead and make sure that everybody can have certain things. Because certain things, we need basic needs. We need housing, we need water, we need clothes. These are things that we just need. And having the knowledge and be able to pass knowledge to others, I think that's a good thing, because without knowledge, you can't really go anywhere, right? If a whole generation of knowledge is broken down, people have to start from day one to get it back. But if you can, as Rhonda be saying, each one teach one. If we all teach each other to do something, we could all band together and do what we have to do to get the stuff pushed on.
Right.
So what legislation are you guys working on right now?
So right now we're working on, again, we work primarily in the public education sphere. So we are looking to update the foundation aid formula in the state.
Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So it's the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. This was 1993.
Not that long ago at all.
I mean, long enough to be fighting. Yeah. I was born in 93, so 32 years ago. Yeah.
I was born in the 80s.
Okay. I mean, but still, you were a child still, Yeah. So, in 93, parent Robert Jackson, who is now a senator, he sued the state because he realized his daughters that their school was not up to par with other schools, depending on like your zip code, and the areas, more affluent areas were getting much more resources than his students' schools, or than his daughter's schools. So he said this violates their constitutional right to a sound basic education.
Right. So
he sued New York State and he won. He's now a senator. Shout out to Robert Jackson. Hope you're listening. He sued, and out of that lawsuit, I think it took, if I'm not mistaken, it wasn't until like 2007 that.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it took many, many years for this lawsuit to actually go through. So when that happened, the state said, okay, we're going to devise this formula called the foundation aid formula. And it's literally just that. It's a math equation of how the state determines how much money they're going to allocate to each student for the school. So the school gets a bunch of money by the state. And that means that each one, like a different school, each student I have enrolled in here will get $1,000. At a different school, it might be $2,000. It might be, and the way that they determine how much each student makes is off of this foundation aid formula. Foundation aid formula accounts for different things like poverty rates, homelessness, free school or reduced lunches, things like that. So on paper, it's like, great. So the schools with the higher needs will get more money based off of like their community and their needs. If there's a lot of homelessness in that area, that student needs a lot more resources than a regular, not that they're not normal, but like, the more affluent places that have money, they have resources. They don't need all of this extra.
The bells and whistles.
Exactly. So they devised this formula, but schools were not actually receiving all of the funds. So AQE, we were born out of this campaign for fiscal equity. We were born out of this lawsuit and working alongside Robert Jackson and a lot of other really powerful leaders. And it took 30 years up until 2023 for us to actually get the state to fully fund and pay what they owed all of these schools.
So they did backlog.
30 years.
And they say they don't have no money.
But guess what? The problem now is that foundation aid formula hasn't been updated since 2000. And it's 2025.
So the codes probably for certain schools had probably changed in that time.
Well, like issues have changed. We have inflation. Like the amount of money now is not worth what it was in 93 or 2000. So COVID wasn't a thing. The mental health issues that arise after COVID. We have so many newcomers here and so many, English learners, English language learners. We have all of these the poverty level itself needs to be raised.
Right. That's for sure. That is for sure.
So all of these, exactly. It's like, oh, I'm not poor enough to receive services, but don't have money. So if I don't get services, I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, barely. Like my account is negative more than it is positive. Yes. So that's one of the main things that AQE is fighting for right now is to get Governor Hochul to update that foundation aid formula. Last year, we had Rockefeller Institute. They did this whole study to see like what needs to be changed with school funding, because school funding, like there's always a threat to cutting it. Always a threat.
I don't understand. That should be a basic human right, though.
It absolutely should.
I'm confused because if your child don't go to school, you get an ACS call. So why
exactly
would that be connected to each other? That needs to happen.
And not only that, it's like when we talk about everyone, they don't want to get out of the system, or they feel like they can't get out of the system because they don't have education. We have built a society that says you cannot make this certain amount of money unless you go to school for 4 years.
Right.
Unless you go into debt and you do all of this, unless you're smart, it's like this elitist thing.
Right.
That college is like, thankfully, I feel like we're starting slowly to move out of that narrative.
Sure.
But it has been like that since forever.
Yes,
that was a thing. So if you're gonna, that also means that if my child doesn't have a right to that education and quality education, not just a school building for you to babysit my kids barely, like to actually educate my kids and educate them the right way based off of their needs, because also each student is different and each student learns a different way. So if you want to have that quality education and you don't give it to my kids, then that means my kids, when they become adults, will not live up to what your standard says that they need to be. And they end up homeless or really struggling or all of these other issues that continue to plague our communities. And it's based off of this like, try to do this. So that's what we're working on there. And then we're also working on universal childcare, because that's another part of it. Education doesn't start in kindergarten.
It really doesn't. It doesn't.
We know this. Like most of your learning and your developmental milestones happen way before kindergarten. So education starts from 0 all the way through till you graduate high school.
It's true.
So we also believe that universal childcare is a right as well, and that the state should be funding it, because parents can get out of these situations that they're in if they have childcare. They could work more. They can get better jobs. They can work flexible jobs. They can go to college if that's what they decide to do. They can do a lot more. And also like the mental health of becoming a parent, having to work multiple jobs just to take care of your child. no end in sight. You're
Right.
you're waiting 18 years, and even then you're not, because now you've set up this life for your child that they're coming into,
Right.
that now they're going to have the same thing, and they're going to need your help, because that's kind of what they were born into. So it's this cycle. It's this cycle, and universal childcare, we think, would absolutely for sure help with a whole lot.
Thank you for coming back this week to hear our voices. And we cannot wait to talk to you next week. I really appreciate each and every person who is listening to this right now. Please send this to a friend. Go on our social media platforms, talk about us, tag us. If you think there's a topic we should be talking about, tag us in it, and we can see, even write in the tag what you would like us to talk about too, if you want us to push on that topic. Because I'm only one person. My team is very small. So if you have any ideas of what you think we should be talking about and what we should be touching to help our community just push forward, definitely, definitely come to us with that. We have a couple of things coming up this year, and I hope that I get to tell you guys before it passes of what we're advertising. Look at our social media event page. We're going to be inviting a lot of people out to help us change different things we want to see in the city and hopefully America. So let's just sit back. Well, not actually sit back. We're done now, right? Thank you for listening, and I talk to you next time. You guys are amazing, and everything will be in our link tree down below. Bye.